I want to start this off with a challenge. I want you all to think of your favorite show, and when you do, raise your hand. Now, put your hand down if none of the characters in your show are black. If your hand is still up, put your hand down if the main character is not black. Now take a look around. I think by doing this exercise, we can all see that Hollywood has a diversity issue that needs to be addressed. Just think about the differences in your answers if I asked about Asian characters or Latino characters or any other person of color. Would your answers be different? Statistically speaking, they would not. Growing up, I dreamed of being a Disney princess. I would spend hours watching the movies and singing the songs, dressed up in the various shoes, gowns, and crowns. However, as I got older, I slowly began to realize that none of these princesses looked like me. In fact, until age 7, when Disney released The Princess and the Frog, I used to tell my mother that Jasmine was my favorite Disney princess because she was as close as I could get to a princess that looked like me. I tell you all this to say, the media we absorb affects how kids of color view themselves, mostly in negative ways. However, it also impacts how majority groups view minority groups, as children are especially susceptible to the influence of media. When children absorb media that either lacks people of color or presents them in a negative light, they interpret these ideas as being how society is, leading to the acceptance of stereotypes and the inheritance of biases. As a Black woman with dreams of becoming a film writer and director, I personally feel the urge to address this issue as I see myself facing a similar uphill battle behind the scenes as well. Today, I'm going to reflect on society's as well as my own experience with the Black best friend stereotype, how this and other tropes impacts how society views people of color, and what we all can do to combat the issue of a lack of positive representation in the media. Now, I have to admit, in the past decade, in terms of representation, we have seen strides. From the success of Black Panther and Girls Trip to the race-blind casting of Halle Bailey as Ariel in the upcoming Little Mermaid remake, steps have been taken to increase Black storytelling. However, many shows and films now view having Black characters as positive representation. This has led to the popularity of the Black best friend stereotype. This trope happens when a Black character is cast as the main character's best friend, but not provided their own storyline or character arc. Instead, they serve as foils and providers of advice to the often white main character, and often hold harmful stereotypes of Black people, presenting as unintelligent, aggressive, loud, and sassy. There are plenty of examples across film and television. Dion from the movie Clueless, Angela from the show Boy Meets World, Chastity from the movie 10 Things I Hate About You, and as for male characters, Sam and Rhodey from the Marvel movies, Frozone from The Incredibles, Chad from the High School Musical movies. I could literally go on. Now, this may seem like it's not a big deal, but there are several reasons why it is. First, the history. Many core Black stereotypes were born out of the era of minstrel shows, in which white actors donned blackface on stage. Blackface then first became a facet of cinema in D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation, which is said by many to be the birthplace of Black stereotypes in film. This later led to blackface characters being portrayed by many famous white actors, from Judy Garland to Mickey Mouse. Now, these blackface characters eventually evolved into several stereotypes of Black people that work to dehumanize them, with two of the most common being the Mammy and Uncle Tom. The Mammy and Uncle Tom tended to be larger Black people with dark skin who were unintelligent, lazy, slow, subservient to white characters, and known for caring for these white characters and their families more than their own. The Black best friend is a direct descendant of the Mammy and Uncle Tom, with their two most notable characteristics being their tendency to provide comic relief and their use as a servant to the white main character through providing advice or help through various obstacles. The tropes are so similar, in fact, it could be argued that Gone with the Wind's Mammy, portrayed by Hattie McDaniel, served as one of the first Black best friends through her love and service provided to Scarlett. Going back to how this affects children, children absorbing media with Black best friends can take in this trope, and this can create biases within them that lead them to view Black people as inferior, less intelligent, and subservient. Marie Castaneda, a professor at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, backed this up with research, stating in a 2018 paper that children become adults whose values are in part shaped by a media system that in the US is based on a capitalist, racist, and sexist framework in its content and regulatory processes. This is why I'm specifically advocating for positive representation, as this trope can seem harmless, but can lead to more biases than a complete lack of representation of Black characters. And this doesn't just affect non-Black children either. Sociologist and author Nancy Yuen wrote an article for Forbes in which she stated that researchers have found that prolonged television exposure predicts a decrease in self-esteem for all girls and Black boys, but an increase in self-esteem for white boys. These practices correlate with the racial and gender practices in Hollywood, which predominantly cast white men as heroes while erasing or subordinating other groups as villains, sidekicks, and sexual objects. I hope by now it is clear to you all that Hollywood has some serious reforming to do. The question is how? I believe that true representation in front of the camera cannot happen until there's true representation behind the camera. This correlation between a lack of representation on and off screen is clear when looking at the fact that Black talent last year made up 15.1% of directors and 13.5% of writers, according to the UCLA Hollywood Diversity Report. When looking at other groups, such as Asian, Hispanic, and Indigenous writers and directors, these numbers are even more marginal. And this is nothing in comparison to the about 3/4 share that white writers and directors maintain. The lack of representation is obvious even when looking at past Oscar winners, with no Black person ever winning Best Film Editing, Best Cinematography, or Best Director. Focusing on finding new Black talent among producers, writers, and directors can lead to more representation that avoids negative stereotypes and presents Black people in a positive, normal way. I believe we can achieve this change through the 4 R's: reflect, reteach, reach out, and rebuild. First, reflect. We must reflect on ourselves. We can't get rid of the media that already exists, so instead we must view it through a new lens of appreciation for the things we enjoy, with the recognition of the harmful stereotypes being presented in various characters. For example, I can love the movie Clueless, while also recognizing and not taking to heart the representation of Dion's character. Second, reteach. We must make sure children especially are exposed to positive representations of diversity and reteach them how to view children who are different from them. There are so many shows now that actively depict children from various backgrounds collaborating together. And as someone with a 7-year-old brother, I am always helping my parents stay on the lookout for media for him, with lots of representation of not just Black kids, but kids from many different identities. Third, reach out. We must address the diversity issue at the root and reach out to kids of color. Many aspects of breaking into the film industry surround connections, meaning it takes some level of privilege to make it. Part of the issue of a lack of diversity is due to the apparent disinterest in fostering the passions of young kids of color who don't have the materials or social capital necessary to make it. I have already taken steps to do this by helping come up with a mentorship program for kids interested in filmmaking during my summer internship at Connect the Writers. Finally, we must rebuild Hollywood and call executives to action. This has already been underway for the past couple of years, and the diversity in Hollywood is only going to continue to grow, but we must continue to hold executives accountable for the lack of color behind the scenes. I personally feel the urge to see these issues fixed as I see myself going into a field that doesn't privilege my lived experience or creative point of view. I refuse to be the Black best friend in life and in society, and like my fellow Black creators, will do my best to be heard and seen. What will you do? Thank you.